that interview and the mock interview and the practicing beforehand is your opportunity to really showcase those communication skills, and to show, frankly, how you would interact possibly with a patient.
Ask the Dean, episode 60. Wow.
Woohoo.
Exciting.
Crazy, right?
So, I'm Rachel Grubbs. I am your temporary host for the evening. Dr. Ryan Gray has been on a little trip, and he will be back with us next week. And how are you tonight, Dr. Scott Wright?
I am great, doing well. Had a great weekend and raring to go for the week, and excited to be here tonight, visiting with all of our friends from MAPT, and excited to answer a lot of great questions.
Nice. Verinia, don't call me Virginia Granum.
Woohoo!
How are you?
We're getting there. I'm doing great. Thank you. Yeah. You've been doing great too. So
I know I haven't had to use the Verinia jar in a while.
No, I know. But we're good. Glad to be here.
You're getting there. That's right. That's right. Good.
All right. Well, while we're getting settled and waiting for our first questions to come in, let's talk about time of year. So we did this a little bit last week, but I think it's a timely topic. So people are writing secondaries. People are living with mystery. What's on your mind? What do you think people need to be remembering or working on right now if they're applying this cycle?
Give yourself permission to maybe take a break, little refresher, maybe go outside, take a walk. They all start to sort of blend together after a while. And sometimes you just need a little distance to reorient yourself and approach it with, a fresher perspective. But you're doing it. You're doing it. Keep doing it. You're getting through it.
Nice.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, I think one of the things, particularly as we get to the point where people are doing a lot of work on secondaries, I think staying organized is a really important point for this time of year. Depending on how many schools you're applying to, we have students that are applying to 25, 30 medical schools, and keeping those all straight. What have I done? What have I not done? When's it due? When's it, all of that stuff, really important to keep those organized. And, keep in mind and pace yourself so that you're, don't feel overwhelmed. The best course of action is planning out. Today I'm going to do these 2 secondaries. I'm going to make it all the way through and complete them and submit them tomorrow, or the next day I'm going to do these. So keeping those things straight. So organization and pacing of yourself is really important. And I completely agree with Verinia that scheduling into that plan time to relax, to decompress, to really focus yourself, go. I love that idea of going for a walk, go to a movie, go to, get on a yoga, a video cast or something, and do some yoga, some meditation, and just really centering yourself so that you're not overwhelmed and you're not feeling exacerbated by what's going on. Those are important qualities to have this time of year when everything's sort of focusing down to the point of getting it all done, getting the nuts and bolts of it all done.
Yeah, great point. So then let's do the other, because we've been talking a lot about application cycle stuff. What if you're not applying this year? So it's just mid-July, somewhere in the pre-med or pre-PA process, right? We might be 4 years out, 3 years out, 2 years out, 1 year out from applying. It's summer. What should I be doing with my time?
Well, this might be a really good time to start looking over some notes from your science classes from last year. If you haven't done that, it's been a month or 2 since you've had some distance away from them. So it's a good idea to look over your notes, maybe get some flashcards, going off of what Dr. Wright was just saying regarding getting organized, make sure those notes are organized. I know it does not sound like a fun thing to do, but trust me, you will appreciate having them organized before your next semester begins, when you probably may not have as much time. If maybe you're not a traditional applicant and you're not in school at the moment, maybe you're working right now. Maybe you're just, working full time. Maybe take advantage of some e-shadowing hours if you can. That's also a good idea. And for other students who are still in school right now, just maybe lining up some more shadowing opportunities, or, just, like I said before, just trying to stay organized.
Yeah. I agree with that completely. I think organization, even for students who are not in the middle of the process, really important. Planning out your year. If you're applying next year, plan out that year. What's going to be happening? You know that you're going to be taking classes. Semester 1, semester 2, or quarter 1, 2, 3. Those are going to be occurring. So planning out what you're going to be doing this year. Don't wait until you get to November and start thinking about MCAT. What do I do? When's the MCAT? When I need to do that? Study. Keeping in mind that study routine. Now is also a great opportunity, depending on how close you are to applying, to start looking at schools and start, there's a lot of medical schools out there, and, now's a good time to start looking at the MSAR on the AAMC website and the equivalent on the ACOMAS website to get a sense of what are these schools, which ones sort of resonate with you, and which ones are ones that you're really attracted to, and maybe examining, what is it I'm looking for in a medical school, and what do I want out of this experience, and what schools are out there that seem to fit with my idea of what would be great for me. And so I think there's a lot that a student can do right now, students that are not actually in the cycle, what they can do to prepare for next year or 2 years out. There's a lot of pieces to this puzzle, and I think the more planning ahead you do, the better off you're going to be.
100% agree with that. And so I agree with everything both of you have said. And by the way, when we're chatting about these things, we're not saying do all of them. We're saying, pick one or two, right? It's part of the whole start early so that you don't have to cram. You can pace it out. So, Verinia offered some things kind of thinking scholastically. Scott has just mentioned a bunch of things sort of about pre-application, which I agree with. I'll offer two other things to consider. So, Scott had mentioned that you might be taking MCAT in the spring. If you're taking the MCAT in January or March, prep is not actually that far away. I know it seems like it is, but a lot of people think they're going to prep for the MCAT and end up doing 3 or 4 months, even if prepping is like the main thing they're doing. So if you're taking the exam in January, you really might start prepping in October. And if you're working full-time or going to school and you have a job and you're going to try to fit MCAT on top of that, you might space out your prep over 5 or 6 months. Well, it's July. 6 months from today is going to be January 19th. We don't have MCAT dates for next year yet, but it's probably going to be somewhere around the 15th or 20th or 25th. It usually is. So January 2022 MCAT sounds really far away. It's not. So you might be shopping for prep and planning prep. You might actually be starting your prep now. And then keep in mind that if possible, if you are going to apply in May of 2022, we recommend that you aim to take the MCAT in January or March or maybe April, because that way you get your scores back by February or April or May. And if, heaven forbid, you have to retake, you've still got some cushion in your schedule.
Yep. Absolutely.
All right. Looks like we've got some hungry question askers. So let's switch gears here. Let me turn off that banner and see what we got. Okay. Someone asks, how can I address adversity, diversity, etc. questions in my secondaries without feeling like I'm beating a dead horse? Being trans is pretty central to a lot of these answers as well, which is why I want to be a doctor. It's in my personal statement and a lot of activities already. So I really appreciate this question because we've had a lot of people ask about how to deal with diversity when they felt like they didn't have to offer. Where here's someone who's saying, I'm a trans person. So like, they're pretty sure what their diversity is, but it's also already come up a lot. So what do you guys think? Is this the kind of thing that it bears repeating? How would you answer these questions?
Yeah, I mean, to me, I do think this is a valid question related to not going on and on and on every time about the exact same thing. I do think you have to broaden your thinking, particularly in this situation where, it sounds like the person has already put in with personal statement, activities. A lot of this stuff is already present. They're dealing with their real self. They're trying to indicate in the personal statement and in the list of activities, et cetera, things about their transition, potentially things about how this makes them who they are, et cetera. So end of the day, I think you have to think more broadly. You have to, I wouldn't, if you've already really covered that in pretty much detail in the personal statement or in the list of activities and stuff like that, then I would hesitate to cover it again in the secondaries. I think you need to think of perhaps other things that might apply. Now, clearly, that may not be the case, and so in that case, I would use other examples within the context of this diversity. Use other examples of why it was a difficult situation for you to come to the conclusion of being a trans person, and how you've dealt with that, and maybe think of different angles to come at it with, besides the ones that you emphasized in the application itself. So I think it's valid to not want to reiterate things in exactly the same way. But again, you have to be straightforward with who you are and how you feel like you fit into these questions. And if at the end of the day, if that's what you're going to talk about, then do it, and don't veer away from it, and don't necessarily worry about it. The medical schools will see that this is a supremely important part of your life, and it has fashioned a lot of your experiences over time. And so you're going to have to really just depend on the medical schools to recognize that. Depend on the people on these committees, the readers of the essays, to understand where you're coming from. You can't veer away from that.
Yeah. It's tricky, right? Because I know one thing that Ryan always says is, don't undermine your own application because you think your strongest example has already been used.
Right.
But he often says that with regards to activities versus secondaries. And I do think personal statement's a little bit different. But yeah, you've got to be authentic. And I really love your idea of same central theme, same core part of my identity that I'm referencing, different instances.
Yeah,
I think that's a really smart way to approach that. Because question asker and anyone who feels this question is relevant, like, you have to be true to yourself. So
right.
Whatever it is you're bringing to the table is what you're bringing.
Yep.
Right.
Yep.
Very well said.
Let's see. Is it okay to send my primary app to schools in August, or will that be a bit too late? I hope to finish all my current secondaries by August, and since then I will have more time, I'm thinking of adding more schools. Got it. So you've already turned in your primary. It's just that you're thinking about adding more schools for primary.
Well, no. It says, is it okay to send my primary to schools in August?
But I hope to finish all my current secondaries by August.
Yeah, I don't understand the question. Yeah, I'm not sure.
We know this question asker, it's anonymous, but I'm pretty sure that they did already turn in their primary app.
Okay.
All right, we're going to skip you for now. Come back and clarify so that we can be sure we're answering this.
Yeah.
Okay, new question. I did a paramedic program, associate's degree in my gap year to increase my clinical authorization. Will my grades in that program matter? Do they apply to the last 30-hour rule?
Yep,
Yes.
they do.
One of you guys want to
Yeah,
talk about in more
if
detail?
they're transcripted, they're going to count. They're going to count toward your grades will matter in the program, and they're going to count toward that 30-hour rule. So absolutely.
Okay. And then, yeah, for whoever's asking, put those in mapped and you can see the upward trends. That last 30-hour rule, that's not a hard and fast rule, right? Some schools look at the last 20, some look at the last 40, some look at 90. So it's not a magical 30. So any courses you've taken at a USA or Canada post-secondary institution that has a transcript, put them into mapped, and then that way you're going to have to put them into your actual applications. So since you're a mapped user, also put them into maps so you can see how they impact your trend. Okay, so we're going to circle back to our friend who was asking about primary. He has already submitted his primary application, and he's working on some secondaries, and he's thinking after he completes secondaries for the schools that already received his primary, that he may select a few more schools.
Gotcha.
And now in that context is wondering about August.
I mean, I think traditionally August is a little on the later side, but I will defer to Dr. Wright's experience and expertise.
I think once, since your application is verified and you've done everything is there. So the process of getting your application to the medical schools is quick now. So when you add additional schools, it's going to be a very quick process getting that application to the medical schools. It's not going to have to go through this 4 to 6 week, process, et cetera. You've already been through that. So I would say, and again, it's just the issue of, are you willing to spend the additional money to do it? And recognizing it's a little bit on the later side, but I'd say go for it. Honestly, I don't think there's a downside. All they can say is no.
Yeah, that's a good point about already being verified. Mm-hmm. I was thinking of it as a new completely new application. Okay.
No, he clarified. Yeah. He's verified his MCAT and CASPER completed. Okay. So yeah, I mean, I guess the short answer is if you've got the resources, by which I mean time and money and energy, go for it. Mm-hmm. Okay, follow back up to the paramedic. We're getting a lot of deep dives into questions today.
Right.
So our person who did the paramedic program wants to clarify, I know that these classes count towards my GPA. I'm more curious about the discussion amongst AdComs in a positive way. If the grades are good, do they help? So what do you think about that, paramedic program grades? I mean, they don't count towards science GPA, right?
No, they don't count towards science GPA. And honestly, I think, they do help. They're not going to be seen the same as upper level biological science, upper level science stuff and things like that. But I think it's going to be two different sort of elements here. Not only are you going through the program, it's a clinical program essentially where you're going to be dealing with patients in a real way, and that will be positive for the admissions committees. A very positive step in the right direction, so I think it's more of the benefit will be more than the grades, which they will see that you've done well in the paramedic program if the grades are good, but they're also going to see and be discussing what is going through this program what has this done to your application? And, that can only be a positive conversation there.
Yeah.
I agree.
Yeah. And being a paramedic is great, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
It's not so much the degree that matters as the work and hopefully the meaningful experiences that you get out of it.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely.
All right.
I think you may have skipped one. Maybe you meant to, but I just want to make sure.
We've had a lot of people circling back to their earlier comments. So
the one that starts off, how is the interview process?
Oh, thank you. Good catch. Okay. How is the interview process different from the primary/secondary process? I feel like I'm telling everything about myself in my written apps, that I won't have anything new during the interviews.
Well, you're making an assumption that the interviewer has actually read your material.
Word.
So you can't assume that. You cannot assume that. You know, some schools have closed process where the interviewer has access to none of that. They don't know anything about you. They may know a little bit about you, but they may have only had your personal statement to read, or they may not have anything. Now, in addition, schools that have an open interview process where the interviewer has access to everything, you can't even necessarily assume that the interviewer has read in depth even the material. You know, maybe they were on call the night before and didn't have time to prep. Maybe they, just procrastinated and ran out of time. I mean, there's just a whole host of things that could have happened or could happen. So, number one, I don't think you can assume that the interviewer has read everything. Even if the interviewer has read everything, it doesn't mean they're going to ask things that you think are relevant. So they may ask some off-the-wall question. I was doing a mock interview today with a student who, biophysics major at a great institution who's, has a variety of experiences and stuff. But one of the things he talked about was that he does competitive archery. And he did mention that within the context of talking about how he was an Eagle Scout and had learned archery in his scouting program. And for a good probably 5 minutes, that's all I wanted to talk about was archery. You know, how did you get into this? What is competitive archery versus not competitive? How are they different? How is hunting using archery different than sport archery? And I mean, we went off on this whole archery thing. And that's a good example. Interview processes evolve, and you don't know what they're going to ask, and they may center in on something that you really didn't talk much about, that you maybe just mentioned in your application. And so, just recognize that. The interview is a totally different animal, and the interviewer, depending on the structure of the interviews at that school, may well be asking a variety of very different questions than stuff that they're not necessarily going to say, well, okay, what's your major in college? Okay, well, we already know that. So, they're going to ask, maybe a variety of questions. So I wouldn't worry about the issue of the interview process being different. It will be different. And they're going to pursue a lot of different questions in a lot of different ways. And so, and that is where I think for what we do through MAPT is one of the services that we do in interview prep. That's one of the benefits of it is being able to sort of practice this and practice a different types of structure so that you get a sense of what may be happening, what may be talked about in an interview. So whether you use our services for mock interviews, or you're doing it through your institution, or you're doing it just with a friend or a mentor, I think it's a great idea to do mock interviews and go through a process where you're having to put yourself on the spot and respond to these questions, etc.
Yeah.
And I just would like to add to what Dr. Wright is saying, that in addition to the, you can't assume that they read your application. This is an opportunity for you to also just show your communication skills, because it's one thing to write everything out very nicely, very well edited on a personal statement. It's a whole other thing if you're actually on the spot having to answer questions. You may get a little flustered. So that interview and the mock interview and the practicing beforehand is your opportunity to really showcase those communication skills, and to show, frankly, how you would interact possibly with a patient. So definitely take that opportunity to really show not just to like run through the list of things that you've accomplished and that you've done. Those are all wonderful. They may have read them already, but more so how you're connecting to another human being.
Well, that's a great point. Great point.
Thank you.
I don't know why I keep saying word today. I hope everybody understands that that's like late 80s shorthand for I agree with what you are saying.
I got it. Right?
I knew
Don't
you
feel bad.
I don't know if they all know.
I know, right? We're dating ourselves. Word.
Yeah, but yeah. So much of the interview is just your humanity.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I helped. I co-hosted e-shadowing last week since Ryan was out, and our presenter, who was a GI doctor, at one point said, "Oh, in my mind, the interview's just double checking that you're a nice person." You know, and she's not an admissions expert. What she is someone who went through the experience herself successfully. So, like, I think there's more nuance to that. And yet, like, that little nugget is not really incorrect. You know, like, they just want to know, like, can you talk to people? I think there's a tendency to over-prepare and come in rehearsed, where it's like if you prepare a lot, you can get to the point where you are talking and you're not rehearsed. And yeah, when your friends are drilling you, they should be sometimes throwing you random curveballs that have nothing to do with your resume or, you know, maybe it's going to be, what do you think about this hot topic in medicine? You know, what do you think about Medicare for all? What do you think about legalizing drugs? But it also might be about archery. So, you know, you don't want to be like, well, that's not an important question. Like, yeah, it is.
Right.
And can I just add really quickly one more thing? Since we don't know now, you might be interviewing virtually. They definitely, that's a situation where you really do have to kind of showcase those skills. You don't want to read from your prepared personal statement, where I've had that happen, where I've, you know, doing a mock interview with a student and I can clearly see that they're reading from whatever script they've already prepared. So that's something that I probably would not recommend. But that's clearly, you can tell as an interviewer, you can tell if someone is doing that. That's why it's good to have these mock interview sessions.
Yeah, as an example, I'm going to spotlight myself for a minute here. So you guys, the audience who are watching, not just listening, might notice this with me because I'm often trying to manage chat and comments. This is me making eye contact with you guys. This is me squinting over here, looking at the comments. If my notes are here, I mean, it's a dead giveaway.
Right.
And, you know, because we're having a conversation amongst ourselves, sometimes I'm not trying to look at the camera. I'm looking at Vernie or Scott because that feels more natural. But if it's one-on-one, they're going to know if you're not at least looking in the direction of your monitor. You know?
Sorry, that was way off topic, but.
No, it's super germane.
Yes, absolutely.
We went on forever on that question. So.
And I do think we mentioned it last week, but again, sometimes these things bear repeating. Ryan did an episode about this last year. It's the Premed Years episode 437. Oh, that's Ultimate Schoolist. Wrong one. Let me try again. He did an episode that was lights, camera, action, was how to do your virtual interview. It's episode 405. So you can listen to that Premed Years podcast and get a bunch of tips from Ryan Gray on just tech setup for a virtual interview. All right. Okay. This person says, 39 years old, transportation engineer, graduated spring 2021. Well, congratulations.
Yes.
I have questions about clinical experience. Due to COVID, I am not able to find any volunteer opportunity yet. I took care of my mom who had diabetes for 5 years. And then I also have taken care of my son who was diagnosed with autism in 2003. I've been to all of his therapies for several years, and I use these activities as clinical experience.
That's a good question.
I think it would depend on what type of activities, because if it's more occupational therapy related, or maybe behavioral, I don't think they would count as clinical. some, like behavioral therapy. So it really depends on what type of activities. But taking care of your mom, I think, would count for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree with that, and I definitely think that a lot of these. I agree with the autism therapy. Kind of would depend on what that was all about. The taking care of mom with diabetes, definitely clinical aspects to that. However, I would say that additional clinical experience would be good.
Yes.
And granted that COVID has kind of made that difficult, it has not made it impossible. So you really have to really beat the bushes to find stuff, and it's getting more and more possible as things are opening up a little bit more. but I do think it's possible, and I do think you're going to need more general clinical outside of family members experience to make that happen.
Definitely. And I want to remind people, because this is a big source of confusion, your clinical experience does not have to be volunteer. It can be paid or unpaid. So, sometimes depending on the way your life is flowing, one of them is easier to you than the other. So, this person mentioned that they're non-traditional, that they've got family members they're taking care of. So it's possible they've been looking for volunteer because they need a little more flexibility that often comes with volunteering.
Yeah.
But
Absolutely.
sometimes working is the way to get your clinical experience.
Definitely.
And, again, like I think the expression you used was beat the bushes, right? If you just keep shaking that tree, something may drop out that happens to fit with your schedule, even though it's paid. And it may not be great money, right? I think sometimes one of the issues with clinical experience is some of those jobs are kind of entry level and not awesome pay, but at least it's some pay for your time.
Right. Yeah. And these days, a lot of there's a lot of jobs out there now, whether or not they're clinical jobs, depending on where your location is, but I would say exactly what you just said, Rachel. I'd really emphasize that, you may have to sort of go through a paradigm shift here and shift away from your current work experience job to something else that is clinically oriented. So don't eliminate that as an opportunity.
Right. Yeah. And ultimately what it comes down to is you get to classify your experiences, right? So whether it's AMCAS, ACOMAS, I think also for TMDSAS, you're choosing, right? So you kind of need to make the case that this work applies to this category. But then what you also want to think about is there are some people who are going to apply with 200 hours of clinical experience, and there are some people who are going to apply with 2,000, and some people who have been a full-time RN for the last 5 years applying with 10,000. So if you just have hours with family members, that it's just a matter of comparison, right? Like that may look like you. I'm not saying this about you, question asker. I'm saying the optics. It may present the optic that you haven't prioritized getting more clinical experience. And the truth is, most of us love our family members enough to take care of them. And it can be a very different thing when you're taking care of someone else's family member. So again, no judgment from the three of us. We're here to help, but we're trying to help you think about the way the AdCom is going to look at this, and they're going to want to see that you took care of some other people. And that doesn't have to be hospital, right? It could be senior center. A lot of people need COVID screeners right now at different organizations. So you might be able to help, take temperatures there. Like you'll have to get really creative and not just think about hospitals. You have to think about all the places that healthcare happens.
Right. That's
okay.
Right. That's right.
Let's move on. I'm tired of talking. One of you read this.
Sure. I'll do it. Oh.
Yeah,
go ahead.
Okay. Is it okay to not answer the question about how COVID impacted you if optional? In reality, it hasn't really impacted me drastically, and I don't want to over-exaggerate my situation. How do I stay genuine if an answer is required?
Yeah, I would say don't stretch it. I think you answer questions even if they're optional. I think you answer them. I think that in this particular situation, which is a very common question in secondaries these days, how has COVID impacted you? I would say, say a few things about how it has not impacted you, and talk about how you're blessed, and how you haven't had to really deal with a whole lot of situations, and that you recognize that so many people have been affected by the pandemic, and that you're super sympathetic and empathetic with them, and in the plight that it has put them in, and whatever, blah blah blah. But the point here being, I think you have to really be honest and say it really hasn't affected me, and I feel I'm so grateful that it hasn't, but I recognize that many people have been really affected by it.
Mm-hmm.
Well said. Do you want me to read the next one?
Yeah, it's a long one. Good luck.
Yeah.
Sure. I applied with one school on my APCAS and waited for my MCAT score. I'm not confident in it, but I'm confident in every other aspect of my app. Is it worth it to practice a little more and retake in August to apply with the best app I can? I just found Mapped, yay, and the Blueprint resources and could dive into those and retake it, or just go for it. It's the weakest part of my app, but still acceptable, just not optimal. That's a lot.
Yeah, that is a lot.
I'm thinking of your famous saying, Dr. Wright. The optimal versus.
Yeah, I think this has been a listener of our podcast or of these videos because they're using that language is my guess, because that's the exact language I use. I think in this case, what would be helpful is to know the MCAT score. We have people who have an MCAT score. And, I think we had one last week where they had a 509 or a 510, and they were lamenting the fact of how low that was. And I was like, whoa, this is, a decently solid score, and so not knowing the score that you're talking about, it's a little bit difficult to answer, what I think you should do in the particular situation. You said, I think it's acceptable, not optimal, as the weakest part of your application. But I think that so I would say it would depend on what the score is, and kind of an overview of your application would be helpful to sort of get a sense of that. Oh, there we go. Okay.
All right, for our listeners, they added, I have a 3.9 undergrad, 3.9 grad, and a 505.
Okay.
And it looks like they did a special master's program?
Yeah, apparently they did.
Okay.
Yeah. So I would say 505 is a little not great, not bad. It's sort of in the middle area somewhere in the gray zone. And so what I would say is I'd probably go for the August retake, particularly if you're just finding new resources and stuff. I think it would potentially be beneficial if you took the did an August retake and then see how that affects you. I agree that academically the other parts of your application are strong, so you want that MCAT score to maybe be a little bit higher. And if you feel pretty good about your ability to impact that MCAT score in a positive way, then I think it'd be reasonable to move forward on that.
Mm-hmm. And by the way, congratulations on your killer GPA.
Yes, absolutely.
I mean, that is nice.
That's awesome. That's awesome.
I work with a lot of people, so do these guys. We don't see those kinds of numbers very often.
Yeah, that's really good. Those are good numbers for sure.
All right. Looks like our popcorn popping is slowing down. Usually when I say that, someone writes me a novel. So give them a moment.
Yeah.
Now might be a good time for me to remind everybody about mapped referral codes. So while I'm waiting for a final question or two, let me log in real quick. So something that comes up a lot, because mapped we are trying to be, a really sort of efficiently priced option, right? We can't make it free because we aren't funded by billionaires. Although if you guys know any billionaires and you want to help us get funding, we'd sure love it.
They're too busy going to space. That's the problem.
Yeah, right? Exactly right. But so people are often asking about are there discounts or there promo codes? And the truth is the way we price, we're already really giving everybody the lowest price possible. But we do want to reward you for helping us spread the word. So what we have is, oops, I picked the wrong account to use a referral. That's embarrassing. What we have is a referral system. So I'm going to log into an account where I can actually show you. But if you are already using Mapped, even just as a trial student, then you should have a referral code here. And if you share this code with your friends and they sign up for Mapped, it's going to give them a 30-day free trial. And then when you pay for your subscription, if they pay for subscription and you're paying for your subscription, then you get an extra 30 days on your paid amount. So like if you buy a year, you're going to get 13 months. If you're on monthly, we'll make your next month free. So I definitely recommend taking advantage. The code is long. I'm sorry it's not catchier. They're each unique, so I'm demoing one. But you've got your own unique code, so make sure to use it so that you can actually get the credit.
Mm-hmm.
Let's see.
Awesome.
What else? Looks like...
Oh, there's one. Yeah, there we go.
Here we go. Can any clinical outside of the USA count?
It depends on the
That's our official answer.
Yeah. I think that absolutely. I think it does. And however, it doesn't replace clinical experience in the U.S. We've had, on occasion, I've seen applicants who most of their clinical experience was on mission trips or, stuff like that, where they were taking blood pressures or temperatures or intake on patients or, various things like that. Definitely clinical, but, what the medical schools really want to see are students who have a sense of, in addition to getting clinical experience with patients, have a sense of what the structure of the healthcare system is that they're going to be entering. What is it like being in the hospital? What is it like being in the clinical setting? What are the dynamics involved? Dynamics in a foreign clinical setting can be extremely different than what they're like in the U.S. And so I would say, yes, it does count, but it doesn't replace.
Yep. Well said. All right.
Awesome.
Looks like we might be at the end of it today. It's summer.
Summertime.
All right. Because sometimes popcorn pops and we've still got a few minutes, I'll do one more screen share to show you guys one more cool thing. And then if there still aren't questions, we'll wrap up.
Yeah.
Okay. So, oops, wrong thing to share. Try again.
Good morning, everyone. It's very good to see everyone.
I'm trying here, guys.
Maybe Dr. Wright would like to sing some more for us.
Yeah, right. No, I don't think I want to punish our listeners or our viewers any more than they've already been punished.
Right.
I know.
Okay. My multitasking has borne fruit. So a lot of you guys know about Map TV. It's free, right? So whether or not you're a Mapped app member, you can come to our YouTube channel mapp.tv, or just go to YouTube and Google Mapped. But I wanted to show you that Ryan Gray has been working hard on a how-to list here. I'll just show the playlist here at the side. Here, let me get through that ad. See if I can skip it. I'm not going to show them all. I have the sound off deliberately just to simplify. But so here's this playlist where if you've got questions about using Mapped, you can see there's some privates. I'll be adding more soon. If you've got questions about using Mapped, it used to be that you had to watch a video we filmed in August that, is helpful, but a little out of date. Or you have to read a big old Google document. And now we have lots and lots of little videos that are I think everything but one is less than 5 minutes, and some of them are 30 seconds. So you can just go to Map TV, type in the keyword you're looking for, and then exactly find the right topic. So you can thank Ryan for that, guys, and I'll keep pushing up more videos as I get those thumbnails and descriptions done.
Yeah, that's awesome.
And yeah, I definitely recommend taking advantage of that if you're having trouble using Mapped. Okay, one last question. Any advice about applying to a school you fell in love with for the mission, vision, curriculum, and research, but you lived in Florida your whole life and the school's in Boston and you're scared? Boston too. I'm just kidding. I'm sorry, guys. Although, I will say, I think it's understood that if you haven't lived in the Northeast and you're considering moving to the Northeast, that even though it's not a different country, you are in for some culture shock.
Yep.
I believe that is well understood.
Well, it's funny that this is an interesting question, because I think that medical school is going to get you inevitably out of your comfort zone.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think this is another opportunity to get out of your comfort zone. If you've lived in Florida your whole life, maybe it'd be a good thing for you personally to get out of Florida and to go to. I don't think the bar should be set as, is it not going to be scary? I had a pre-med student just the other day that I've been advising. He got into medical school. I met with him recently. He was just about to move to the new city where he's going to medical school and about to start medical school. This is a guy who had a 3.8 or higher GPA in biochemistry, 520 MCAT score, paramedic, firefighter. This guy is, a superstar. And his comments to me were, I am scared to death about what's coming. And so don't let the scaredness of it be the standard for you. Let the opportunity for what this is going to do in your life and what this is going to bring to you, let that be the standard. I'm not encouraging you either way, but I'm saying don't let that be the standard. Let the standard be, I want to grow. I want to grow as a human. I want to grow as an intellectual being. I want to grow as an emotional being. I want to grow as a professional being, etc. Let that be the standard for you, not the I'm scared part. You're going to be scared. That's a given. So don't let that be the standard.
Yeah.
That is awesome advice.
That's so wise.
Very.
Yeah, I'll pat myself on the back.
Yes, you do.
All right. Well, we will close off there. It's been another
awesome.
Great Ask the
Yeah,
Dean.
it has.
Yes.
Absolutely.
I appreciate all you students who join us live and all of you watching the replay weeks later. We appreciate you too. You can go to map.com if you want a free Mapped app trial, and then you can join these sessions and actually ask questions live with the other Map members.
Absolutely.
And Scott and Verinia and everyone watching, we'll see you next time.
Bye.